Tony and I are back again, and we're checking in on this bye week. And Tony, you better come strong today because I'm not playing with you. You better put on the heavyweight boxing gloves. And Tony, let's jump right into this. John Allen said earlier during the week after that game against the Dolphins, after that loss, he was talking about, being frustrated, that he thought about wanting 100%, wanted to be traded. And that kind of talk when you're basically trying to hold this team together by a thread, and then you have comments about wanting to be traded. He hasn't won since he's been here. I understand that. But at this stage of the game, to make a comment with this, that's almost like unraveling the team right there, because if you didn't think you had lost the locker room or this team, comments like that can make you basically lose a team, with that attitude. What's your thoughts on his comments? And do you agree with what he said? Or like I said, at this point of the season, you definitely don't need those comments from anybody. And especially, he's supposed to be a leader.
Well, you know what? Very good question, Donna. And like they say on the game, I'm glad you asked me. But no, I want to just tell you the truth. At least he was truthful about one thing. He's been here 7 years. And like we spell it in Texas, SEUM 7, and they haven't won anything. To me, he's had a problem ever since he was in the fight. He ain't hit nobody else. I shouldn't say that. He's played all right, but he hasn't played.
No, he hasn't hit nobody this season, though.
He hasn't played the potential none of the individuals have. I look at, and then to start saying you want to be traded, then already you're telling me in the back of your mind, that you haven't performed well enough to be here. And, when players start saying things like that, they want to leave, they want to move, they want to say they can get a better start. And a lot of times it works out. I got traded from Chicago to New England, and I was at Chicago 3 years, then New England 8, and that was 8 of the best years that I had. And then I went to Washington 3 years later. So
you got a Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about it is, if he's been here 7 years, he's supposedly one of the leaders. So you don't look as if you've given up because where you are with 4 or 5 games left. You put the ingenuity out in the individual, like, you watch me work. This is what I'm going to do. I remember whenever we was having bad years, sometimes I'd overwork in practice, just let the young people know that's what we have to do. So talk is cheap. You know what? Action speaks louder than words. I don't want to hear it. Show me the next 4 games that you really want to play or you really want to be here. And I'm not just referring to Allen either. I'm referring to anybody on the team as well as coaches.
Yeah, Tony, because up until this point, a lot of frustration is there with this team, just the way they've been losing. They've given up 90-some points in the last 2 games. Offensively, they only scored 25. So, when you start losing, the frustration starts. I mean, Terry talks about that he's not getting the ball enough. Everybody else talks about, receiver-wise, about what's happening in that passing game, not understanding that you've got Sam, who is a young quarterback, and that's been making, been up and down this season, and he's trying to get the ball to various different people. How much pressure do you put on him? When you say that Terry said that, he just felt like in that Dolphins game that he was just getting his cardio in. And I understand, Terry has been positive overall. I mean, not making excuses, but a receiver wants to get the ball. But at this stage of the game, anything that you say, because this team has done a good job with the frustration of the losing, of keeping a tight lip, no matter how they feel. And for John to come out there, John Allen, to come out there and making those comments about the trading, he thought about it 100% and wanted to be possibly traded. Nobody needs that at this stage when you're trying to finish out the season with 4 games to go. To me, you just basically, is pushing this team in, basically pushing them over the edge, Tony, the rest of the way and like I said, he's supposed to be a leader. So I thought that was poor on his part. But let's talk about Terry McLaurin a little bit. So Tony, when you look at the stats for the wide receiver, Curtis Samuel's second behind Terry McLaurin in reception and receiving yards. And and this has been his best season as far as Curtis Samuel. So, Sam, when you look at him, he's been spreading the ball around. And I know you constantly say, get it to the playmaker, but it's not that easy when you have a quarterback and an offensive line that basically has been disappearing all season long or has not showed up for the most part this season. How do you see that, Tony, as far as Terry, wide receiver, Sam, offensive line?
Well, all the way down, if you really want to go, you look at what Terry was saying, and one thing about it, that shows me Terry is not all the way in command of his leadership position. He's the last one. He and Jonathan should start talking about being traded, or we're not doing this, or we're not here, or this and not that, because they both have been here quite a while. John is the featured defensive player now, our defensive lineman, and Terry is the featured wide receiver. You got to build your team up. You can't just all of a sudden say, oh, well, this is what it is, because that's what too many teams do. And Terry, because you're not getting the ball, do like Brown did in Philadelphia on that Monday night when he went right and got up in the guy's face and said, look, I can beat these people. Then if he tries you and you beat him, he'll know you can't. If he tries you and you can't beat him, then you might as well be silence of the lambs, because there ain't nothing else going to be going on. So, I look at this whole thing, and this is what started to happen. I had 1 year like this, and everybody started, in other words, making excuses instead of getting results, and myself included. So that's where they are right now. The only remedy they got right now is to finish this year out strong. Try to keep as many people you can and add the pieces you got to have. So that means the coaches got work, everybody has to have work. So you need to right away find out and get everybody in position they can help you and not wait.
Yeah, Tony, we have a following on our podcast. I'd be curious what they thought about the comments that John Allen said, and also, as far as Terry. But like I said, Terry has been positive, and like he said, after he said that I'm going to do whatever I can to help this team moving forward. So I'm not so much concerned about, what Terry, because he went and talked to Eric Bieniemy, but I'm curious what the fans thought about what John Allen said. And at this stage of the game with 4 games to go. So Tony, let's talk about Eric Bieniemy and his play calling this season. Talk to me about what you feel, what kind of job do you think that he has done? He has produced 30-plus point games in the first 8 weeks of this season. It's slacked off a little bit the last 2 games where they scored, the 10 and the 15 points. But if you were a general manager, we don't know how this is going to play out as far as, them retaining Eric Bieniemy, and definitely we know that Ron Rivera is probably gone. How would you assess Eric Bieniemy this season?
Well, I like him. He's tried to adjust. I haven't liked all of his calls, Donna, and you and I spoke about it. When we was at the Bills game, even though they were only behind by 10 or 12 points and they were going for it on 4th down, or I thought they should have kicked the field goal to get the confidence up to keep going. So in plays like that, I haven't felt well. But at the same time, how many 4 or 5 300-yard games have his quarterback put up? And it's not because of the quarterback every time either. So I'm looking at him. It's the one thing that he doesn't have is Kansas City talent. He got some, but like I said, Kansas City got four wide receivers and back that run 4-2 or better. So you got
Kelsey, the tight end.
Yeah,
the quarterback.
Exactly, and then they got a defensive that is opportunistic, and they'll make things happen when they have to. So it's hard to say, who can do what or where they can go. And as we digress and go back to the Washington team, I guess that's why we're confused, and we can say what team. If I look all over the league right now and be very truthful with you, Donna, it's only 2 or 3 teams. Right now, I'm going to call my Super Bowl right now. I'm going to call the Ravens and the 49ers.
Whoa.
Okay, everybody heard this. And I told you 49ers last year.
I'm writing it down, Tony. Y'all heard this, Pete.
Okay,
Tony,
and then the next time you see me, I'll cut it
49ers.
and put some blood on it.
Hey, some blood on it. I want to know the fans who would be your Super Bowl picks right now. But Tony, when you look at Eric Bieniemy, when I look at him and assess him, I think that with the talent that he had and what he had to do with Sam, he's made Sam a better quarterback from day one up until this point. Can he get better? He'll tell you in a minute that he can get better at his play calling because with this team, he's got to be creative because you don't have an offensive line that can block, run block, or pass block. So you're already behind the 8 ball with your offensive line. And then you've got a young quarterback that's learning on the fly. So you're behind right there. So I think considering the hand that he's been dealt with the talent and so forth and it all starts, like you said, is the quarterback play, Tony, because if you've got a veteran quarterback in here with the Patrick Mahomes, that caliber of quarterback, then Eric Bieniemy probably looks a lot different than what he does with a Sam Howell. And now how this plays out, we don't know, Tony, because when you look at building this Washington team, whether they bring Bieniemy back and word is that teams are already considering him, Chicago and maybe, even the Chargers if they let go of that quarterback because he can go back home. But Tony, when you start putting this team together and Josh Harris came out today saying that there would be an increase in ticket prices for next year. But when you put this team together, and we know that this organization has done it backwards, where instead of hiring the GM, they hired Ron Rivera, who wanted to be the GM. No head coach should ever be giving GM duties. They shouldn't even put that in the contract. If that's predicated on them coming here, then they don't need to come to Washington because they need to look at the general manager. And Tony, you well know you play most times in building a team. You get the general manager first. He looks for the coach, and then it trickles on down from there. Not get the coach and then the general manager and all that. When you look at this moving forward, how would you put this team together? Because we know that Bieniemy, if they get a general manager, they may want to bring in their own people.
I'm keeping Bieniemy first and foremost. As I told you in the prior conversation, in the prior remarks, he's put up 300-yard games, and he's orchestrated them. How many times have we said that in the last 10 years, Donna, if any? So I think he's doing a job, and I don't think it would be unfair to me to release him at this time. Even if you just want to keep him as a position coach, but let him get his feet wet. Don't move him around because I think he's doing a pretty good job. He does make some calls, but see, he's arrogant. He's been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 or 5 years.
That was with Kansas City. This is not what Washington is not Kansas City, so he should be arrogant.
But that was my next point. He don't have the same kind of players here that he had there. And he can't do the same thing. But at the same time, you talking about the offensive line is improved is only through his calls. He's making them do the short blocks, cut right there, do whatever you need to do, and then they up and moving. Whereas you look at the offensive line before, at least he's giving them a little bit of moxie to do play action and stuff. And they need that because they're just not good enough to go one-on-one, in my opinion, pass blocking. So I think he's done a good job. Donna, my $10 still hold. I want my money.
I'm getting the money.
I'm coming for you.
Hey, fans,
I'm coming for you.
Hey, fans, on Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus, Tony and I made a little wager because I believe that if they end up, I'd like to have Eric Bieniemy back, but I don't think this organization may bring him back because if you bring in a new general manager, that general manager wants to bring in their own people, and that's the reason why I think that he may not be back if that's the case. Tony thinks that he's going to be back no matter what. So we got a little ching-ching on that to see who's going to be right. I'm normally right in all of these matters, but I'm just giving him an opportunity. But, Tony, we talked about Eric Bieniemy. Let's talk about, because we're going to break down the coaches. we talked about Eric Bieniemy. Let's talk about Sam a little bit. Second in the league in passing yards, with 300 and something. You should be second because if you pass the ball as many times as they pass the ball, because the
observation.
He was 12 of 23 for 127 yards and 1 interception against Miami. That was one of his low points. But against Dallas, 28 of 44 for 300 and some yards. And if you go on down the whole year looking at his stats, that he's going to have high numbers because they pass the ball almost probably 80% of the time. And then he's accounted for 23 touchdowns. He's been sacked so many times that we don't even want to talk about that anymore. 18 passing, 5 rushing on the year, Tony.
They say he's on point to getting 78. If when he gets 78, I'm going to put my uniform on there and go back out.
Hey, Tony, if they let him get that far to break the record or whatever, then we need to shuffle that whole offensive line. But when you
no question, but you know what, Donna? And you said that, and I guess I'll bring this up now. I've been working out, and I think I'm coming back next year, and I think I could be the difference.
And you know what?
And I'm going to play guard.
Tony got jokes right now, but if he didn't come back on the playing field, he definitely need to come back on the coaching field because I think that, Tony, you could, and all jokes aside, that could really help that. But before I hop over to the defensive side, how would you assess Howard?
I don't want you to leave that question yet, Donna. I don't want you to leave it, and I'll tell you why. You got to tell me why you and Alex and the different ones feel like this is the chance that they're giving Bieniemy that nobody's even ever given him. At the same time, he's done a decent job. So why would they fire him, Donna? Why do you think you feel he's going to be gone? I don't.
No, I only feel that way. Like I said, is that if a new general manager comes in with the coaches, coaches, Tony, want to bring in their own people. Look at Ron Rivera. When he came in, he brought some dead weight over from Carolina that hadn't won with him. And that was one of his downfalls with bringing Scott Turner and giving him that opportunity. If I'm a coach and I'm trying to succeed right off the bat, rather I've been out there for a long time with retreads and so forth in coaching. But when you're coming over to a dysfunctional organization like Washington was, you can't afford to bring in a Scott Turner learning on the fly in his first offensive coordinating job. That was one of the biggest mistakes. And then you bring a Jack Del Rio who had not been successful also. So to me, he gave himself a disservice from when he came over here as the coach and everything. So what I'm saying is just like Ron Rivera brought over his own people, being that he was the head coach and the GM, that's what I look at, that if they bring in a new person as the GM, and then they bring in whoever the head coach is going to be, they may give Eric Bieniemy an opportunity if that head coach wants to keep Eric Bieniemy on to further develop Sam Howell. But we don't even know if Sam, the ownership, is going to want him to be the quarterback moving forward. They may want to go into the draft and look for a new quarterback. So everything is planned on what this organization is looking to do as far as that general manager, and then they bring in the head coach, and then he may want to bring in his own people, and then Eric Bieniemy is out. And also, Tony, we got to look at that. If Eric Bieniemy is given a head coaching job outside of Washington, and he wasn't going to be given one here, that's another reason that he may be gone.
Mm-hmm. But I'm just going to reiterate what I said. He's done a better job than Turner did. He's been around a while. He knows how to work with good and bad players. And that's the one thing that I'm saying he's trying to reform here. Is he wants to?
But these crybabies talking about he works them too hard.
I know, but that's the league in general.
Yeah, nobody wants to put in the real work.
Right.
Yeah, but Tony, I know what you're saying, but the bottom line is that sometimes even if people are doing good jobs and they deserve to be somewhere, we know how society works. It doesn't matter about how great you do a job sometimes. People still give you your walking papers.
Well, we'll know in about 3 weeks. I tell you what, they got to buy this week, and then they go against Dallas the week after.
They don't. They got to buy. Then they played the Rams in LA.
Rams, right.
The Rams started off.
They got a tough schedule.
Yeah, the Rams started off 3-6, and they seem to have found their footing. They played the Ravens, I think, this week, but they seem to have turned the tables, and they're headed in trying to get into the playoffs. And all the teams that the Commanders have left, except the Jets, they're trying to jar for position in the playoffs. You got the Rams still, trying to, get into the door. You got the 49ers, who's probably one of the best teams.
Their best team, and they're not hurt, Donna. Come on, give it up. I know you don't want to give it up, but they're the best team.
Because the way they dogged the Eagles and shook them up, they seem to be healthy, because when they were losing, they were nicked up. Even the quarterback, Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy. Everybody questioned Brock Purdy when he played last year, and that quarterback has basically solidified that position. He's showing that he's a real solid quarterback for the 49ers. And then, they finish up against Dallas. So Dallas is trying. You think about Dallas plays the Eagles, and if they beat the Eagles, that division, they're tied in the division. So all of those games that the Commanders have is against playoff teams that are jarring to position themselves in the playoffs or still get in, and that is the Rams, except the Jets, and the Jets may be a worser team than the Commanders are right now. But Tony, let's talk about Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera's record in Washington is 26-36-1. He has not won this. Overall, he hasn't been a winning coach here in Washington. He's been good, as we say, culture-wise, putting this team together as far as the cultural part, but as a coach and everything, he's failed. He's got a failing grade. How do you assess Ron Rivera?
I assess him as he's a decent coach. He makes a lot of decisions that I don't think I agree with. I don't think he utilizes his defensive prowess as much as he should. He was an excellent defensive player back in the day.
You made the point back in the day.
Oh, everybody got back to the days. We can't stay the same we are. Come on.
About the present, Tony. We talk about the present right now. You talk about
but Donna, how are you going to fire him, and he's only been on the team for 8 games or whatever it is?
I'm talking about Ron Rivera. You talking about how you're going to fire him?
I jump back. I'm back in area.
I understand, Tony, that when we talk about defense, you get emotional because you can't stomach what has happened with this defense this year. But
don't you think it all started when that remark was made in the offseason?
No, I think it started with this team not having a solid defensive coordinator to utilize the talent. That's where I think it started. And then Ron Rivera said he's going to simplify the defense against the Dolphins. Well, we had Eddie Mason on the show this week, Tony, and he broke it down. He was basically saying, why did Ron Rivera have them in that position defensively wise? Because he didn't set them up to be successful. And Ron Rivera talked about 2 plays, Tony. He talked more about Tyreek Hill's touchdown on their 3rd possession, and then also the 60-yard play. But it was more than 2 plays, Tony, on defense that was breakdowns. They got beat over and over, on wide open receivers, people not covering. For him to say it was 2 plays that did them in, no, it was more than 2 plays that did them in, Tony.
Well, let me go back to him and answer the question where you said it too. I think Ron had a good run here. I think Ron, is he's a genuine guy, but that don't put wins in the seat. But you have to think about the organization he was dealing with while he was here as well prior to this one. Then go back to Bieniemy. I think when they brought him in.
Okay, Tony, wait a minute. You said to deal with the organization. I understand that, but we're talking about the football end of things, Tony. I understand he had the debacle to deal with as far as Dan Snyder and that whole saga off the field. But I'm talking about him as a football guy, Tony.
But he's not worried about that right now, Donna, because he's just like you keep making mistakes on the show. We're gonna get some new personnel in. So no. But no, think about it though, Donna. It really he's got to think two things right now. You saying he's thinking he can't just think football because just like we know, he may be gone in the next 4 or 5 days. And if he doesn't show up some kind of way against these, what reason would it be to keep him if he doesn't look good the next game or two?
Well, Tony, he can look very good in the next 4 games, and he's still not going to be back as the coach, I don't think.
Donna, I hope you keep that bet. I just hate I didn't make more.
I'm talking about Coach Rivera. I think he already know that he is not going to be back. You think he is? Hey, fans, you heard what Tony had to say. I don't strangle him. Please do not strangle Tony for those bad comments and those bad thoughts.
Haven't you noticed I'm trying to be optimistic? I was so negative the last couple of weeks.
I'm trying to just be truthful. Hey, Tony, as they say, the truth will set you free. Ain't no sense of putting sugar on sour grapes, Tony, when we got to just tell it like it is.
Well, it's okay. You trying to catch flies. It'll pull the flies over there, so But with that being said, you don't know, and you're probably pretty much right. And I'm just fighting it for no reason at all because
a little sunshine.
The new ownership is going to want to see what their people can do. Had he won a couple of these games, or if he win the next 4 in a row, they'll take a look at him down. And trust me, I've seen more different things in the NFL. They will take a look at it.
Trust me, it's going to be blindfolders on still.
That's all right. When I'm right, I want to hit. But the only thing I can't be right about it, I asked the question on the show, and I asked you again, why hasn't he gone and solicited Cam Newton to help him?
I told you last time when you put those words out your mouth that you need to wash your mouth out with soap. You need to get a zipper and zip it back.
But why, Donna? You don't never say why. Why do you think?
If Cam was a good quarterback, he would be back in this league right now. I think his skill set.
No, I'm calling you. Got me calling you. Wait a minute. Did he not get them to the Super Bowl?
You're talking about a Ron Rivera again, Tony. You talking about way back then when he was a top quarterback.
It don't matter when you've been there. But
New England gave him a chance, Tony. If you can't play under Belichick, and they gave him an opportunity to be the starting quarterback, and he failed miserably, Tony, if you bring his name up again, I'm putting you in the corner. Time out.
I'm ready to go in the corner. You know what? You talking about if he couldn't do it in New England, nobody can do it in New England right now. And the bad thing about it, when they let Brady leave, they were thinking that Belichick was more important, but now they see he was not. And I think had he changed his mindset, everybody they bought in the last 2 years, they wanted to be a replacement for the big guy. You can't have that. Everybody got to work with their own tools. I think Cam had enough tools to do better than the people that he's had there and the ones we've had here.
Hey, Tony, you know what Cam is right now? He needs to stay right there. He needs to stay right where he's at.
He's promoting himself, correct?
Yeah, but Tony, in closing, let's talk a little bit about this. In reality, if all of these coaches are changing everything, who do you look for, or who do you like that's out there to be the next head coach for this Commanders team, and also the GM position? Because we'll talk, after the season about people out there GM wise, but coach wise, who would you like to see as the next head coach for the Commanders?
Bieniemy, because nobody's ever given him a true chance. Nobody's ever looked at the expertise that he has in calling offenses. Nobody looked at the expertise of the people he put on the field. I know it is a collaborative issue between the scouts and him and everybody. But I think that he deserves a shot. And I don't mean with someone looking right over his shoulder and he got to worry about every move. He deserves the shot. Same thing they gave Heineke. He deserves the shot. Look, Heineke's still playing in the league. So, I think I would love to see him get a shot, but you and all of my people feel like he's not. But I keep
I'd like to see him get a shot too, but I'm not for sure if Washington.
Why? That's the question I keep asking. It just doesn't. It's not logic to bring him in 1 year. He improved the offense, and then you get rid of him.
Well, hey Tony, you know how this league works and everything. It's about who has paid their $6 billion+ and who they want to bring in. Even though we may think that we would like Bieniemy to get the chance, it's about that person who had paid all of those ducats and who he wants in here. And I want a fresh, innovative coach in here. And Tony, next time we're going to talk about some of the assistant coaches that have gotten away from Washington who possibly could have been good head coaches, because guess what? They're good head coaches elsewhere. How about Cal Shanahan, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniels, who just came in here and walked over the Commanders. And then you got Kevin O'Connell. So we'll talk about some of those guys that they let get away, Tony, who have been successful with other teams. So, Tony, as you say, since you
I'll tell you what, they may let him go, but like we say on the show, we won't tell them goodbye. We'll just tell them in a minute.
In a minute.